The next is yuktaseniyam adhyayam व्याख्यास्यामः यथोवाच भगवान् धन्वन्तरिः. Yuktaseniya adhyaya, the title represents about a royal physician and his responsibilities. In the older tradition, kings had to have their own dedicated physicians, and those physicians had to have some special responsibilities. And the special responsibilities are reminded in this chapter. But practically, in this chapter, you have a very little detail about that kind of issue, whereas all the details, more of the details are seen in Kalpasthana. But this is just a few sentences about the need of a physician for the king is mentioned, but you have some more interesting issues in the chapter which are directly not related to the responsibilities of the royal physician. Anyway, नृपतेः युक्तसेनस्य परान् अभिजिगीषतः भीषजा रक्षणं कार्यं यथा तदुपदेक्ष्यते विजिगीषुः सः अमात्यैः यात्रायुक्तप्रयत्नतः रक्षितव्यो विशेषेण मिषादेव नराधिपः. The kings, they need to have a physician because they are more exposed to the enemies or as well as his surroundings like the ministry and so on. So there is a high possibility of poisoning, and hence the physician and his team has to take care of this issue. Panthanam udakam chayam bhaktam yavasmindanam दूषयन्ति अरयस्तत्र जानीयात् शोधयेत् तथा. The possibilities of poisoning or harming the king would be on the way route or in the water, or it could be in the surrounding area, surrounding as such, or in the food, or it could be any of the instruments which is handled by the person. There could be poison, and hence their treatment their identification and this treatment is the responsibility of the royal physician. तस्य लिंगम चिकित्सा च कल्पस्थाने उच्यते. More of the details is mentioned in Kalpasthana. But in this chapter, the details are something different. एकोत्तरं मृत्युशतम् अथर्वाणं प्रतीक्षते तत्र एकः कालसंयुक्तः शेषाः आगन्तवः स्मृताः. Now, this is a very interesting issue. The death as such is classified into 101 varieties of the deaths in Atharva Veda. This is what Sushruta has said. Among them, one is the Kala Mrityu. All the other hundreds are Akala Mrityu or Aganta Mrityu. Now, Atharva Veda, Sushruta refers to Atharva Veda, but unfortunately, the Atharva Veda has more than 10 branches, 9 branches to be exact. 9 branches, 9 shakhas of Atharva Veda are known to be there, but at present is only one which is available. That's the Shaunaki Shakha is the only available textbook of Atharva Veda or in the written form. All the other Paipala, Hadantaha, Pradantaha, Stota, Auta, Brahmada, Yashada, Vedadarsha, Charanavidya branches are not yet available. Their sources are not identified. In the Shaunaki Atharva Veda, there is absolutely no reference about these 101 Mrityu. But it's believed that these are mentioned in the Charanavidya type, Charanavidya Shakha of Atharva Veda. So at present, we cannot give more detail about what are those 101 types of the deaths classified in Atharva Veda. But about the death as such, what is death and how the death occurs is a very interesting issue. In Charaka Samhita, the death is considered as Kala Mrityu is considered as a gradual, degenerative and essential process. श्वेतामग्निवेश यथा यानसमायुक्तो अक्षः प्रकृत्यैव अक्षगुणैः उपेतः स च सर्वगुणोपन्नः वाक्यमानः यथा कालं स्वप्रमाणक्षयादेव अवसानं गच्छेत् तथा आयुः शरीर उपगतं बलवत् प्रकृत्या यथावद् उपचर्यमाणं स्वप्रमाणक्षयादेव अवसानं गच्छति समृत्युः काले. A kalamrityu is compared to a wear and tear in a vehicle, wear and tear of the axle of a vehicle. A vehicle, even though it's in a good condition and it is run with all the care, there is a natural wear and tear, and that natural wear and tear resulting in a situation where the vehicle becomes a junk, where it cannot be used further. That's considered as a kalamrityu, that kind of a situation. It's a gradual degenerative process which results in death is considered as a kalamrityu according to Charaka. It's a very interesting issue. एव अक्षः अतिभार अधिष्ठितत्वात् विषमपथात् अपथात् अक्षचक्रभङ्गात् वाह्यवाहकदोषात् अणिमोक्षात् अनुपाङ्गात् पर्यसनाच्च अन्तर अवसानम् आपद्यते तथा आयुः अपि अयथा बलमारम्भात् अयथा अभ्यवहरणात् विषम अभ्यवहरणात् विषमशरीरन्यासात् अतिमैथुनात् सत्संशयात् असत्संशयात् उदीर्णवेगविनिग्रहात् विधार्यवेगविधारणात् भूतविषवायुवग्नि उपतापात् अभिघातात् आहारप्रतीकारविवर्जनात् अन्तर अवसानम् आपद्यते समृत्युः अकाले तथा ज्वरादीनापि आतङ्कान् मिथ्योपचरितान् अकालमृत्यून् पश्यामः इति. Now, even as a vehicle can get this damage due to misuse, and misuse possible given by examples given by Charaka is very interesting. Atibharat, by carrying more than the capacity, or because it's not used at all, adhishtitatvat, a vehicle which is not used at all for a long duration. Vishamapathat, vehicle driven on a irregular route. Apathat, a vehicle which is driven on a non-existent route at all, what field runs like. Aksharakarbhangata, breaking down of the vehicle, wheels of the vehicle. Vahyavakadoshat, a defect of the driver, the man who drives the vehicle, and because of his defect. Animokshat, due to the axle breakdown. Anupangat, if the sufficient maintenance is not done, or Paryasanatya, that's a damage, a intentional damage, hitting someone. These could be the causes for the end of the carrier of the vehicle. Similarly, in a human being too, ayatha balamarambhata, because a person doesn't know his limitations and he indulges in a activity beyond the limitations. Ayatha agnyabhavarata, consumption of the food beyond the capacity of digestion, or vishama abhyavarata, because of the consumption of improper food, or vishama shariranyasata, by keeping the body in a abnormal position or abnormal movements of the body, or unhygienic movements of the body. Ayasat, excess of exertion. Maithanat, excess of sexual indulgence. Or asatsamshayat, because of getting involved with the improper people, or the sinners, getting with the sinners, those who are not good citizens, getting involved with the bad citizens, having a bad circle around, or Udira Vega Vinigrahata, by suppression of the natural urges, or Vidharya Vega Abhidharanata, Vega Dharana, Dharya Vega, those Vegas which are supposed to be suppressed, if they are not suppressed, if they are not controlled, if they are not regulated, physiological urges, if they are not regulated, Bhuta Vishavayavanyupatapat, due to the these infective processes or the toxic substances in the environment, if there is a possibility, or abhigatata, due to trauma, or ahara pratikara vivarjanata, if you are not taking sufficient precaution to ensure that the food is maintained properly and the processing of the food is not proper, there could be a damage and to the body, and that damage could be presented as the diseases like Jaradin, diseases like Jara and so on. And if these diseases are not treated properly, a improper treatment can result in a death, and that kind of a death is called as a akala mrityu. So a gradual degenerative process is called as kala mrityu, and a mrityu, death occurring due to any of these external factors, could be akala mrityu. Now, about the death as such, Indian mythology or Indian philosophy has a very clear-cut concept, and that concept is जातस्ते हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्ममृतस्य च तस्मात् अपरिहार्यार्थेन त्वं शोचिर्मसति. This is from Bhagavad Gita. According to Bhagavad Gita, a death is certain. The moment a person is born, death is certain, and the process of death is inherent in each and every living being. This is a very important scientific principle. I will come to that part. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. The concept of an Atma, a living force being beyond that or separated from the physical structure of the body, is a very unique concept of Indian philosophy. It's not only about Ayurveda. Ayurveda also accepts the same Atma. And that concept of Atma is a very unique Indian philosophy which gives a very clear impression of what is death and what's the other way. So, according to our Indian philosophy, there is no question of death to the Atma. Atma is a life force which gets into the organic substances temporarily and gives a shape of a body of any creature, any insect or any human being, and it becomes animated. That's then at one stage there is a separation of that animate and the non-animate substances or surroundings, and non-animate gets decomposed and again becomes a seed for another animation, whereas that animate force or what we call as atma, life, that can again reunite with that. And one stage there is a super atma or paramatma where this can get merged and it may not get again get into that binding of the physical substances. So that's the basis of the Indian philosophy. From the current medical science point of view, there is about the death, there is a lot of confusion. That's very interesting. Definition of death and the study of death itself is a very complex issue and not very popular. A branch of science which deals with the study of death is called as thanatology, and that thanatology is not a part of medical studies in routine conditions, in the routine medical syllabus of modern medicine. We do not have thanatology branch at all, but thanatology is a branch existing, and this is what where there is a lots of study about the death as such, why the death occurs and how the disease death occurs. Definition of death in current science is death is an irreversible cessation of all physical biological functions that sustain an organism. There is no concept of atma. When the biological functions are stopped irreversibly, which cannot be changed, then that's called as the death. Now, from the clinical point of view, death is categorized into two categories, somatic and cellular. Somatic is true for multicellular organisms where you have systems to continue the life-sustaining functions like respiratory system, neurological system, etc. In a human being, when the respiration and brain functions are not and circulation, the three functions which are also called as the triad of life, tripod of life. If they are not functioning, a situation where circulation, respiration, and brain functions are not functioning, that can be considered somatic death. In a person who has a somatic death, still the life process can be continued if you maintain human artificial means of maintaining these functions, circulation, respiration, or brain functions. If they can be maintained, you can keep him alive to a certain extent. His metabolic activities may be still continued in the body, and hence that condition is called as somatic death. In the somatic death, all anaerobic enzymatic processes are still continuing. Hence, even if a person is not under support of an external support, still certain of the tissues which can survive to mechanical stimuli or which can survive in an anaerobic environment, they can still be living, and like muscles can respond to mechanical or electrical stimuli or even thermal stimuli for a considerably long period, up to about half to 1 hour. So that's the important thing there. So even after the death, you will have that changes which occur in the muscle, the rigor mortis, the muscle changes which are characteristic features, and that tissues may die gradually, or tissues will have that abnormal function, this cessation of their biological functions after a certain period of time based upon their characters, whether they can survive in an anaerobic environment or not. Usually, for clinical considerations, we have a certain characteristic feature or define a somatic death is if no heart sounds are seen or no heart sounds are heard for 5 minutes and no breath sounds and no pupillary reflexes, then we can declare a somatic death. A somatic death is declared based upon these three bishops tripod of life, where you will assess the circulation by heart sounds and the respiration by the breath sounds and the brain functions by the pupillary reflexes, and when these are absent for 5 minutes, a somatic death can be declared. Whereas cellular death is where every metabolic activities in the cells are stopped and vital tissues all die, and it may take about, as I said, it may take about 3 to 4 hours for the cellular death to occur. And the signs of cellular death are the skin changes seen in the body, the color of the body would be changes, and rigor mortis developing is the situation. Now, something interesting issues about the cell death, more of the details of the cell death. Why the cell dies? Now, that's the issue. Lots of biological explanations are being given, and the more common this explanation is of what we call as apoptosis or autophage associated cell death or necrosis. When the cell dies, a normal cell, when it gradually shrinks and then its functions are lost, that's called as apoptosis. When there are now every cell has the enzymes which are necessary for the death of the cells or dissolving the cells. The organelles of the cell, in every organelle of the, every cell, you will have the vacuoles, and these vacuoles contain the enzymes which are required to digest the cell. And when the cell reaches its mature life, these vacuoles will be ruptured and these substances will dissolve, and this is what called as autophage cellular death. Now, this is one of the important philosophy. A cell which doesn't have its functions later on, that is destroyed by the nature itself. Or a cell may even die due to necrosis if the blood supply is not there, or the extracellular fluid and this tends to flow into the cells improperly, and the regulation of the fluid leakage, fluid control is lost. The cell membrane gets damaged, and that's what we call as a necrosis. So mainly the process of cell death is categorized into three categories. Apoptosis, where it's something like what Charak has said, like there is a gradual deterioration. Then autophagy is a spontaneous cell death. That's what Bhagavad Gita has said, where you have the death already certain in the body. Necrosis is the accidental, or what we call as the akala mrityu. Now, this death again in the contemporary science is considered or categorized into three categories: regulated cell death, programmed cell death. Programmed cell death is that's the gradual deterioration, that akshavat, that's what Sushruta has said or Charaka has said. Regulated cell death is a certain cell death which is present in the body or in each of the cells, and accidental death is the akala mrityu. So akala mrityu and kala mrityu concepts are understood in the contemporary science in a different manner, because there is no concept of atma. Now, why the death occurs and what are the changes which occur in the death in the body? There is a lot of confusion. The theories about this death is now very rapidly changing, right? And the concept of the death is changing very rapidly. And this timeline, like the theories which have come up in from 1972 to 2018. So among the latest theories which are known, the oxytocin and alkalyptosis, where the chemical changes occurring in the cells are considered to be the cause for the death. So, but again, still there is a lot of confusion, and as usual, when you have more theories to explain, that shows that the issue is not understood properly. Now, this is what these different theories are shown. Like, of course, I am not going to each of these details of that, but these are certain of the theories like autophagy, apoptosis, pyroptosis, necroptosis, or ferroptosis. Ferroptosis is the gradually there is a shrinkage of mitochondria and the constant reduction. By study of these cell changes under the microscope, it's now may be possible, hypothetically it may be possible, to predict the exact possible life of the patient, life of the particular cell. Now, it's not about the system, whole body. All this is about the single cell. If you study the morphology of the cell, by looking at these changes in the nuclei and the DNAs, as well as the changes which occur in the mitochondria, there is a possibility of predicting the life of the cell. That's the one. And there are lots of studies now. Again, I will not go into detail. The death receptors and the death ligands, these chemicals which can predict the death, are also now being identified, and they are considered to be one of the breakthrough investigations or breakthrough studies which can help in maybe in the targeted cancer therapy, or it's also possible, maybe hypothetically it may be possible for reversal of the degenerative diseases. This is still in the experimental stage. All these are in the experimental stage. None of these have come to the practical use, but these are interesting new developments which are there, where there is a study about the possible death and death prediction. Death and death prediction is one of the major research area, and then prevention of the death also is a major one of the major research area going on. Nothing fruitful has come out as such. Now, anyway, that's about the concept of death as we know now. Then we continue with the Sushruta. Doshadantaja mrityubhya rasa mantra visharadau rakshetam nripatim yattau vaidya purohitau. Now, to protect the king is not only the Vaidya, medical person. Along with the Vaidya, there has to be a Purohita, an advisor, a technical advisor, and a medical person. They are essential to protect the king, and a Vaidya or a physician should have skill in Rasa Mantra Visharada. I also should have known very well about the rasas. Rasa in the sense not about the padarasa, it's about the rasa, these gunas of the dravya, so that he can select the correct dravya at the right moment. And mantra visharadaha, the mantras also are supposed to be another responsibility of the purohita, so that he can prevent the possibilities of injury to the king. Brahma, Vedangam, Ashtangam, Ayurvedam, Abhashada, Purohita Mate Tasmada, Varteta Vishagatmamana. There has to be a good coordination between the Purohita and the Vaidya for a better maintenance. Now, whether this is in the current situation, whether this kind of issue is applicable or not, question mark. So we will not go into much of the detail. Now, certain of the causes why there could be a disease to the king. Sankarah Sarovarnanam Pranashah Dharmakarmana Prajanam Vicha Uchitihi Nrapa Vyasana Hetutaha. The king can become diseased, or king may have a maybe this physical disability due to one a improper maintenance of the system in their area. Dharma karmanam pranashaha. The dharma is not religion, the social order. If a king is not able to maintain the social order, prajanama pichochtihi. If there is a revolution by these citizens, citizens of the country, as occurs in Sri Lanka recently, if there is a revolution and there is a rebellion by the citizens, or Nripati Vyasana Hetavaha, because of overindulgence in any of the addictions of by the king. Kings are more prone to get addicted, and that because of the addiction, they are more prone to develop the diseases. पुरुषाणां नृपाणां च केवलं तुल्यमूर्तिता आज्ञा त्यागः क्षमा धैर्यं विक्रमश्चापि अमानुषः तस्मात् देवमिम भीक्षणं वाङ्क्षतकर्मणि विश्वभिः चिन्तयेत् नृपतिं वैद्यः श्रेयांसि इच्छन् विचक्षणः. There is a difference between the king and the common man, though their shape is same. The tulyamurtita, the physiology is the same, but there is some extra responsibility of the king, where he has to command the whole country, and he should be able to sacrifice himself. He should have a tolerance, and he should be brave enough, and he also should be bold enough to face the crisis. And because of these extra qualities, he requires more medical attention. स्कन्धावारे च महति राजगेहादनन्तरं भवेत् सन्निहितो वैद्यः सर्वोपकरणान्वितः तत्रस्थमेनं ध्वजवत् यशः ख्यातिसमुच्छ्रितम् उपसर्पन्त्यमोहेन विशेषल्यामयार्जिताः स्वतन्त्रकुशलो अन्येषु शास्त्रार्थेषु अबहिष्कृतः वैद्यो ध्वज इव भाति नृपतिः नृपतद्विद्यपूजितः. The Vaidya should be very close to the palace of the king, and he should be just at an arm's distance. Skandhavare. A physician should be at arm's distance from the Rajageha, from the king's palace, so that he should live very close, and the Vaidya should also have all the instruments with him, and he should go along with the king wherever he goes, like a dhwaja, like the flag of the kingdom. He should be always accompanying as such, and a physician who is skilled in his job, as well as he follows the science properly, that kind of a Vaidya can be successful. वैद्यो व्याधिपस्यश्च भेषजं परिचारकः एते पादाः चिकित्सायाः कर्मसाधनहेतवः गुणवद्भिः त्रिभिः पादैः चतुर्थो गुणवान् भिषक् व्याधिम् अल्पेन कालेन महान्तमपि साधयेत्. Now, the topic about the king and the loyal physician almost ends in this chapter at this moment. From now onwards, you have a totally a different sort of this description about the qualities of the Vaidya, as well as how a treatment can be successful. The treatment can be successful based upon the qualities of the four important components of the treatment, and those important components are Vaidya, the physician, Vyadhipasrastha, the rogi, Bheshajam, the medicine, Paricharakha, the nurse or nursing persons, nursing care persons. These are considered as a Chikitsa Pada, the Chatushpada of the Chikitsa. Of course, every text would be commenting on that. Now, when the all the three padas are maintained are good enough, and when the Vaidya also is good enough, then the treatment will be successful. Whereas Vaidyahinaha traya padaha gunamantopi apartakaha udgatra hotu brahmano yatha adharyam vina adhare. Now, suppose all the other three padas also are good, but Vaidya is not of a good quality. The physician is not of a good quality, whereas the other three are having the sufficient optimum qualities even. Then, even though the three are there in a proper manner, the treatment, condition or treatment cannot be successful. The management of the disease cannot be successful, and so should compare it to a situation where Udgatra Hotra Brahmana Heta Adharyam Vinadhare. In a yaga, there has to be Adharyu, the chief one who maintains that homa or who conducts the homa, and the others, supporters of the homa, the helpers of the homa, who will utter the mantras, who will just prepare these the preparations for the homa, though they are good enough, without an adharyo, without that the chief purohita, adhar or yaga cannot be complete, and hence the maximum importance among the pada is given to the Vaidya, physician is the most important. वैद्यस्तु गुणवान् एकः तारयेत् आतुरं सदा प्लवं प्रतितरैः हीनं कर्णधार इवाम्भसि. In a situation where the other three components are not proper, even without the other three components, a efficient Vaidya, a physician, can have a successful management of the disease, like in a flood, a boat, even if it is damaged, if it has its karnadhara, if it's the piloting instrument is proper, rest of the things, even if they are damaged, a boat can be still controlled in a flood if the major controlling component, the controlling chamber of the boat is proper. Similarly, even in the absence of the other, or even if the other components of the chikitsa or treatment are not proper, a be able physician can continue to have the treatment and be successful. तत्व अधिगत शास्त्रार्थः दुष्टकर्मा स्वयं कृति लघुहस्तः शुचिः शूरः सज्जोपस्कर भेषजः प्रत्युत्पन्नमतिः धीमान् व्यवसायी विशारदः सत्यधर्मपरो यश्च स भिषक् पाद उच्यते. The qualities of the bishop, the Vaidya, are tattva adhigata shastrartha. He should know the science properly, both its meaning as well as the theory of the subject should be studied. Drishtakarma, he should have a practical exposure. Swayankriti, he also has to have a hands-on experience, a practical exposure as well as a hands-on experience. Laghuvastha should be skillful, should be able to execute the activities. In surgery, it's about hands and eye coordination. Shuchihi, Shuraha, he should be physically as well as mentally clean, brave enough. Sajja Upaskara Beshajaha, all the instruments as well as the medicine should be available and should be already stored. He should have that ready source of the instruments and medicine. Infrastructure for the treatment should be proper. Pratyutpannamatihi, he should have a acute insensitivity, and where he can make the decision immediately. The Pratyutpannamati is instantaneous deciding capacity, skill, and Dhiman should be very intelligent. Vyavasai, constantly involved in the profession, should have a professional approach, and Visharadaha, knowledgeable. Satyadharmaparaha should follow the truth and should follow all the norms of the practice. Sabhishakpada uchyate. That's a Vishakpada. Now, the similar issues are discussed in every Samhitas. In Charaka Samhita, there is a very a different sort of the presentation of the qualities of Vaidya, and the qualities of Vaidya are categorized into two, Pranabhisara and the Rogabhisara. The Pranabhisara are those who will be resulting in welfare of the patient, and those are तस्मात् शास्त्रे अर्थविज्ञाने प्रवृत्तो कर्मदर्शने भिषक् चतुष्टये युक्त प्राणाभिसर उच्यते हेतौ लिंगे प्रशमने रोगाणां पुनर्भवे ज्ञानं चतुर्विधं यस्य स राजार्हो भिषक्तमः. The physician should have a proper knowledge of the etiology of the disease, the signs and symptoms of the disease, and the management of the disease, prevention of the disease. These are the four important aspects of a management of the disease where a physician should be skilled enough, and then only he can be a successful physician. This is a very interesting and very important statement. शस्त्रं शास्त्राणि सलिलं गुणदोषप्रवृत्तेः पात्रापेक्षीण्यतः प्रज्ञां चिकित्सार्थं विशोधयेत्. The shastra as well as the shastra, that's the surgical instrument as well as the science, they can be of good, they can result in good results or bad results depending upon the person who handles it. So they are like a sharp instrument. It could be used for the good of the person, or it could be used for the even injury to the society. So it depends upon the personality and capacity of the physician who deals with that, and hence prajnam chikitsatum shodhe. So who follows that clinical discipline should have his his mental processes very well controlled. विद्या वितर्कः विज्ञानं स्मृतिः तत्परता क्रिया यस्यैते षड्गुणाः तस्य न साध्यम् अतिवर्तते. A person who has a proper knowledge and who has an analytical approach and who has a broader science as a smriti, he memorizes things properly and has a dedication, tatparata, dedication. These are the six qualities, and with these six qualities, there is nothing which is impossible. विद्या मतिः कर्मदृष्टिः अभ्यासः सिद्धिराश्रयः वैद्य शब्द अभिनिष्पत्तौ अलम् एकैकम् अप्यतः. Vidya, knowledge, mati, that perception, your capacity to intellectual capacity, karma drusti, this skill or training in hands-on practices, abhyasa, a practice as such where you have used it, siddhi, perfection. These are the essential capacities of a Vaidya. Each of these are essential. Even if a single one, even then he can be considered as Vaidya. Vaidya Shabdha Nishpato. If you have to consider any person as a efficient Vaidya, he should have all these qualities like Vidya, Matihi, Karmadasya, Abhyasaha, Siddhi, Ashaya. That six gunas should be there. यस्यत्वेते गुणाः सर्वे सन्ति विद्यादयः शुभाः स वैद्यशं सम्भूतम् अर्हन् प्राणिसुखप्रदः. Satyavaidya is considered as a Vaidya. Now, Charaka also says something more than that. Shastram Jyotih Prakashartam Darshanam Buddhiratmanah Tabhyam Vishak Suyuktabhyam Chikitsan Naparadhyati Chikitsite Trayapadaha Yasmad Vaidya Vipashayaha Tasmad Prayatnamadishteta Vishak Swaguna Sampati. Though there are four padas, responsibilities of the treatment is distributed among the four categories, still the Vaidya has a greater responsibility, and he has to train in such a way that even in the absence of others, you should be able to maintain that course of the treatment. And to do the treatment, you will have to make use of the Shastra. The whatever is mentioned in the text is an essential guidance, but in individuals' real-time situations, there need to be some modifications, and that modification is based upon the skill and experience of the physician. So, darshanam buddhiratmana, the like something, the shastra is considered as light, and the skill and intelligence of the physician is considered compared to the vision. So that vision can make use of that light but it can have more details and modify the details as such, and hence a physician has to be very skillful. And another important qualities of the Vaidya, according to Charaka, is Maitri, Karunyam, Arteshu, Shakya, Priti, Upekshanam, Pragatisteshu, Bhuteshu, Vaidya Vritti, Chaturvida. Once you get into the practice, the major four aims of the practice would be Maitri, you should be friendly with the patient and should have some what we call as the emotional connection with the patient. Karunyam Arteshu, those who are suffering, you should be having some sympathy to that or empathy to the patients. Shakya Priti, wherever there is a Sadhya Vyadi, the outcome is good, you will have to treat them and prefer a condition which is treatable. So know your limitations and select those areas where you have a upper edge or you have a higher capacity. Your proficiency should be made yourself. Upekshanam prakritisteshu bhuteshu. If there is a situation where the outcome is very poor, try to avoid. It's not that you avoid them. Try to avoid those conditions where the outcome is poor and the patients who are deemed to die, better to avoid that. These are considered as the four approaches of a clinical practice, successful clinical practice according to Charaka. Dakshaha, now in Vagbhata, the words, the same are mentioned in very simple words. Dakshaha, Tirthartha Shastrartha, Drishtakarma, Shrutirabhisheka. In the current medical practice as such, again the same thing is repeated, and one of the standard protocols, standards which are generally guided to the medical practitioners in the standard protocol would be the qualities of a physician as per the Mayo Clinic proceedings. Mayo Clinic is considered to be the major or the guiding force for the current medical practice now. And according to the guidance of the Mayo Clinical proceedings, the qualities of a physician should be a confident, empathetic, human, personal, forthright, respectful, thorough. These are all just copies of what Charaka or Sushruta has said. Now, a statistical survey of physicians all over the world was done, and what question was what makes a good doctor, and the results of that is published in 2022. Now, this is the latest results of that survey. Again, there is nothing new about it. It's about the survey of the physician's opinion, and their opinion is collected. So, what are those qualities of a physician's traits and behaviors of a good physician? And as per that analysis, it should be strong interpersonal skills, compassionate, good listener, empathetic, honest, humble, strong moral character, responsive, persistent, clinically sound and humane, and his behavior should be remains current with the knowledge and evidence based in their field, fosters trust, good communication skills, display leadership, patient-centered, motivates and supports colleagues, contributes to scientific understanding of the disease. These are all the possible or predicted qualities of the physicians based upon a survey of physicians around medical persons around the globe. I mean, that's about it. Now, coming to the other paragraphs. Aishman Sattuvan Sadhya Dravyavan Atmavanapi Astiko Vaidyamakyasto Vyadhita Pada Uchyate. The qualities of the patient would be, one is he should have a good vital capacity and should have a mental ability to tolerate. Sushruta says Sadhya, the disease should be curable. Dravyavan, he should have sufficient resources as well as he should also have the willpower to sustain the treatment. Astika should have belief in the physician. Vaidyamakhyastha should be obedient to the physician, whatever the guidance of the physicians are there, they should be followed. That's the qualities of a ideal patient or good patient, where the results could be expected. Charaka has added a few more. Smriti, Nirdeshakaritvam, Abhitvam, Athatva, Jnapakatvam, Jarogana, Matrasya Gunaha Smritaha. Smriti, memorizing the issues as well as Jnapakatvam. He should also execute that memory. Nirdeshakaritvam, follow the instructions. Abhirupam should not be discouraged, should have a positive attitude to the disease. Then that considered as the qualities. Ashtanga, of course, it's a very popular statement. Adhyo, Rogi, Bhishak Vashya, Jnapaka, Sattvanapi. The same is repeated. Now, with the way Dravya, medicines, qualities are Prashasta Desha Sambhutam, Prashaste Aharita Buddhutam, युक्तमात्रं मनस्कान्तं गन्धवर्णसान्वितं दोषघ्नम् अग्लानिकरम् अविकारि विपर्यये समीक्ष्य दत्तं काले च भेषजं पाद उच्यते. The bheshaj pada vaidya or medicines should be collected from the proper region or geographical areas, and should be collected at the proper timing, season as well as the days, and the quantity of the dose or the dosage should be given proper, and it should not be old. It should be preserved well. Anaskantam, should not be damaged, or should be the qualities should not be affected. Should have all the expected qualities like gandha, varna, etc. And doshagnam, it should be having that potential to affect the dosha situation. Aglanikaram, it should not produce suffering or should not produce some distress to the patient as the medicine is consumed, or there should be no adverse effects. Abhikarita should not produce another disease. These are considered, and Samiksha Dattam Kareta, a medicine which is given in the proper timing is considered as the qualities of the bheshada or the medicine. Now, in Charaka, it's Mabhusha, Tatra Yogyatvam, Aneka Vidha Kalpana, Sampachet Chatushkoyam Dravyanam Gurunchire. Vagbata, Bahukalpam, Bahugunam, Sampannam, Yogyam Ausharam. The same thing, the sentences are different, presentations are different. That's all. स्निग्धः अधिकुत्सुः बलवान् युक्तो व्याधिकरक्षणे वैद्यव्याकृत अश्रान्तः पादपरिचरः स्मृतः. Parijara, the nursing supporting should be snigdha, should have a affection to the patient. Adhikupsu should not have an aversion to the surroundings, like should not hesitate to deal with the body secretions, body discharges, etc. Should be able to handle that. Balavan should be strong enough, and yuktaha vyadhita rakshan should have the capacity, should have the skill to know how to deal with the patient. So nursing techniques should be trained properly, and Vaidya should follow the guidance of the physician properly. Ashrantaha should not get tired easily. These are the qualities of a nursing person. Of course, nursing is now also considered to be one of the most important aspects of the clinical management. In the Western countries, the nurses are more important than the physicians. Now, Charaka has given the qualities as Upacharajnata, Daksham, Anudagascha Bhartari, Shaucham Cheti Chatushkoyam Guna Paricharejanah. In Vagbata, Anuraktaha, Shutirtaksha, Buddhiman Paricharakha. It is Sushrutasayam Sutrasthana Yuktaseniya Nama Chatustrimshodhyaya. So that's about the Yuktaseniya Adhyaya. Though the chapter starts with the royal physicians, the details given are something more wider uses like, and it's a very important chapter from the point of view. With this, we'll wind up today. If there are any questions, then we'll answer. If there are no questions, we'll wind up. Fine. Right. No questions.